What's going on, guys? Welcome back to F123 for My Team Career Mode, Season 1, Round number 11, the Japanese Grand Prix. Now, before we get into this, I am a little bit sick at the moment. You might better hear it in my voice. Might not quite be as high energy, because I think I am coming down with something. So, I do apologise for that, but the show must go on. I'm hoping to get a couple of these recorded before I get too sick, because, yeah, I have a bit of a sore throat at the moment, so that's not going to help with commentating, so let's see how we go. Going into this race weekend, putting a few upgrades on the car to come through later on in the season. We look at R&D, and we've actually fallen back now behind Aston Martin and Mercedes. Mercedes were behind before. It is still a massive group, though. I mean, look how much closer we all are to Red Bull now. The top five now really separated by almost nothing, especially Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston Martin, and my own team. Red Bull a little bit further ahead, but yeah, it is super close. And then the battle behind it's kind of like the top five teams are one group, and then the next six teams are the next group, and that's pretty much it. So really, really awesome to see how close everyone is this season. Q1 here in Japan, and yeah, this is a track that I struggled with quite a lot in previous games. Much like a lot of other tracks with this game, I am better here than I was in previous games in F123. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, I guess it's just the handling is a lot better, a lot nicer in F123, so I do tend to be quite a bit better at this track than I was in the previous game. As we get through to Q2, we ended up going P11 because I didn't quite get the best time in. Still enough to get through, though. Jack Doohan, my teammate, also gets through in P15, so it's good to see him at least getting through to Q2. Not sure if he's going to get through to Q3, but it is very tight at the top with how close all the teams are. So for him to at least, I think the minimum is he needs to at least get through to Q2. As long as he can do that, I'm going to be pretty happy for the time being. As we go into my Q2 lap, and yeah, a better lap this time. I think we're not a whole lot up, or are we a whole lot up here? I can't really see if that might actually be almost a second up in the top right there, but that's probably just based on my first flying lap time. But yeah, this one a pretty decent lap time in Q2 here. As we round the final corner, got to be a little bit careful on the throttle coming out of that corner, and yeah, we're like a second up on my previous best time this session. That's going to put us P5 in Q2. Doohan misses out, but only just P12 for him, so I think that's a pretty good performance. I'm happy with P12, you know. Technically on R&D, our car is now like P9, P10 territory, so for him to put it P12, I think is pretty decent considering how close the whole grid is. And then we get on to my Q3 lap time, and yeah, this one went okay. As you can see, I'm a little bit down coming into turn 1, but then I carry a lot more speed through turn 1, and then as we head into this S's section, I've just really got to throw the car in. Now this section is really fun to drive in this game. This is probably the main section that in previous games I've really struggled with, because you know the S's sections always have been very difficult. In this game though, you've got so much more grip, I've got so much more confidence as well, that I can just throw the car through. I can, you know, I know it's going to stick, and it's just so much more fun to drive in this game. So we get through that section very well, head into the hairpin, brake at the correct point in time, come out of this corner and down this next bit here, just on the power. We're already about 6/10ths up on my previous time. My previous time in Q3 was on used soft tyres, so I'm expected to be a bit quicker. As around that corner, but maybe a little bit wide, the back end gets a little bit wayward there, so perhaps a little bit of time lost, but not too bad as we head up to 130R. Flat out corner here in these cars, easy through there, and then we head into the chicane for the big braking zone. Get the car maybe a little bit deep, a little bit wide into the chicane, and then a little bit of a squirm out of it as well, so not perfect. And I think my lap time actually ends up being a 10th or so slower than what it was in Q2. We end up going P9, which to be honest is not where I was expecting, and I think that's the case. I think my lap time's about 2/10ths slower than it was. If I did the same lap I did in Q2, I would have been around about P7. We're P9 between the two Alpines, but let's see what we can do in the race for the Japanese Grand Prix.
The beloved Suzuka had a couple of unplanned years away from the calendar, but it's now back where it belongs, at the heart of the Formula One season. Welcome along to the Japanese Grand Prix. We're southwest of the city of Nagoya today at the unique figure-of-8 Suzuka circuit. 3.6 miles and 18 corners make up a lap here, with average speeds approaching 136 miles per hour. DRS will be available, of course, into the potential passing opportunity at turn 1, although the best place for overtaking will be through 130R and into the final chicane. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position. Sergio Perez lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, Russell, Fernando Alonso, Ocon, Davies, Gasly, Norris, Doohan, Oscar Piastri, Zhou, Bottas, Hulkenberg, Stroll, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Sargent, De Vries, and Alex Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. Alongside me to discuss all the action today is Anthony Davidson. Thanks for joining us, Ant, and tell me, you were down in the pit lane earlier. How do you think the track conditions are today?
Well, the surface looks clean enough, but I'm a little bit worried about the track temperature. It's pretty cool out there, which could give some teams difficulties when it comes to keeping their tyres in the right operating window. The cars out there that work their tyres hard and really put a lot of energy through them, they'll be the ones that are better off.
Alright, so here we go for the Japanese Grand Prix in Season 1 of F1 23, my team. To Fly Road Lights, they are out and away we go. It's a decent start for us. It's a blistering start from Ocon, a very slow one from George Russell as it's 3 wide up ahead. Ocon's got an absolutely amazing start there. We have to slot in behind Ocon, so behind Russell, sorry, so we actually don't make up any positions there, kind of boxed in by a few cars ahead of us. But yeah, we're just going to slot right in here. It's been a terrible start for Russell, a great start for Ocon. Not the best start for Max Verstappen either, so that could be big in the championship. I didn't even mention, but Lewis Hamilton actually managed to get pole position, so he's another different driver here to get pole position. So that is pretty exciting, you know, not being one of the top 3 in the championship, getting that. So can he convert here, especially with his teammate Russell being all the way back down in P8. Verstappen's down here in P7, and I think Leclerc is up there in the top 3 though, so yeah, let's see what happens in this race. But we're going to continue on just behind Russell at the moment, just keep our pace going, keep up a good pace here, and just, yeah, defend a little bit from Gasly behind. We've got Doohan actually behind him in P11 on the soft compound tyres, so most people here on the mediums, a couple of drivers on the softs, my teammate being one of those, so we'll see how that strategy plays out in the race. But as we head through 130R very quick through this corner, not going to go for a crazy move into the chicane on lap number 1. We have time to play with here, so let's not get too carried away as we head around the final corner and onto lap number 2. We've done a whole lap of the Japanese Grand Prix to the Suzuka circuit, and there we go. Looking at the start, this is from Esteban Ocon. He gets an absolutely amazing start. Is past myself, Russell, Verstappen. He's now alongside his old teammate not Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, and through turn 1, I guess you call that, he gets the position, and that's an amazing start for Ocon. I think he's up to P5 from P8. This was Russell getting a terrible start, boxed in a little bit by Verstappen. Ocon gets alongside, we're alongside Russell there as well. He manages to defend from us, but yeah, that is a terrible start for George Russell, as it's not going to be long though for Esteban Ocon, and the pace in the Alpines just isn't quite there. Alonso gets up the inside and gets ahead of him into turn 1, and Ocon probably will start falling back now, but it was a great start for him. The Alpines just don't have the pace, the race pace, any pace really, compared to all the cars around them. They are in that kind of bottom 6, where every car around them is in that top 5 group. So yeah, it's going to be a matter of time. And now Max Verstappen trying to get the move done on the Frenchman as he goes up the inside and round the chicane and is ahead of Ocon. Ocon may come back. No, he's not going to quite come back on the main straight, as now Ocon just falling down the order. George Russell, the next car to go for a move on lap number 5 down the main straight here. He just doesn't really have anything to defend. I think they're going to go side by side. Yes, they are, through 130R. So Ocon is trying to hold on. We are now just like sat here in the background waiting to pick up the pieces as they go side by side through the chicane. We're right here and we're trying to get a good line, so maybe we can have a go at Ocon down into turn 1. And with DRS, he has DRS too, but we are just going to power to the outside of him. We're a little bit boxed in by Russell. I have a little look to think maybe we can go up the inside of Russell as well, but I'm not going to quite do that there. We get past Esteban Ocon, he's down to P9, so after a great start, 5 or 6 laps in, he's already pretty much back to where he started. My teammate Jack Doohan on the soft tyres is making moves as well. He just got past Pierre Gasly and is now he's now in an Alpine sandwich just behind myself at the front of the field, and Lewis Hamilton still leads the way from pole position from the 2 Ferraris. Carlos Sainz in 2nd place, and it's Charles Leclerc in 3rd. Perez started on the front row with Hamilton, but he's dropped back a bit. He's been overtaken by both Ferraris, and I think Perez is down in P4, so not the greatest start for both the Red Bull drivers, because Verstappen didn't have a great qualifying and hasn't had a great start either. As now Pierre Gasly is coming back at my teammate Jack Doohan once again. Those soft tyres starting to go off by this point, and the straight line speed of the Alpine means that he can get alongside as they head through the chicane. A little bit of contact through there, but that's not too bad for Doohan, because if he can get a good run out of this corner, he will have DRS, and sure enough, he's going to go and have a look back up the inside as they head down the front straight up into turn 1, and Doohan back ahead of Gasly again, just trying to hold on for perhaps a points finish in this race. That'd be very good for him. Next car ahead of us is George Russell, as we've gotten away from Ocon quite considerably. We're now going for a move on the inside of Russell, and it's late on the brakes into turn 1. Very fun corner to get through, and the AI can be a little bit weak into that corner sometimes, so we get that move done on Russell. A couple of laps later, and we're coming into the pits now for our stop onto hard compound tyres. Russell continues on for another lap. We come in, and it's onto the hard compound tyres. It's another good pit stop from the team. We are still yet to have a bad pit stop, which is crazy. I've seen other creators, granted they've been, most of them have been starting the career mode as a kind of beginner, not as a midfield contender like we did, so I guess they have less facility upgrades, but yeah, we haven't had one dud pit stop for ourselves yet. Our teammates had a couple, but we haven't had any bad pit stops yet, so I'm sure it'll come eventually, as Russell actually manages to kind of overcut us, get back past us in the pit stops. He's now on cold hard tyres though, so I'm going to see if I can do anything, but I don't think I'm quite going to be able to. But Lewis Hamilton is absolutely dominating at the front. He's now got a pretty commanding lead over the 2 Ferraris behind him. You can't even see them. There they are. He has got a massive lead over the 2 Ferraris. Hamilton going for his first win this season. If he wins, it'll also be the first driver other than his teammate Russell, Leclerc and Verstappen to win main Grand Prix races this season. So Hamilton trying to be the second, the first second driver of a team to win a race, if that makes sense. The 2 Red Bulls now going at it. Perez not showing good pace. Verstappen starting to make gains, and he gets past his teammate into the final chicane. But like we saw with Doohan and I think it was Gasly, the DRS very strong down the main straight here going into turn 1, that Perez managed to just pull back alongside and get ahead of him well before turn 1. So Perez back up into that position. The 2 Red Bulls not really playing fair with each other there. They are racing each other for sure. No team orders at Red Bull. As speaking of my teammate, once again, a battle brewing here between Ocon and my teammate, as Ocon is on I believe the hard compound tyres. My teammate now on the mediums from starting on the softs. A little bit of contact through the chicane there. Ocon barges his way through, but once again, like we've seen many times before, our teammate with the DRS down into turn 1 will pull alongside. Ocon tries to squeeze him, but in the end, actually, my teammate really does not brake late enough. Ocon brakes as late as he can and makes the position, or keeps the position, around the outside going into turn 1. And my teammate's actually starting to fall back a bit. Now he's got Lando Norris alongside him as they head through 130R into the final chicane, and Lando Norris has gotten ahead of Doohan. So unfortunately, Doohan's starting to fall back here. Norris also on the medium tyres though, so looks like he's on the same strategy as Doohan. As we're continuing on and actually showing some pretty good pace here, the Red Bulls up ahead seem very slow. Russell kind of was pulling away from us a little bit, but has now been kind of caught by, well, actually it's Alonso and the 2 Red Bulls. Verstappen pulling away a little bit here, but Perez, I haven't heard anything over the radio that he's struggling, but Perez really does seem quite a bit slower than you'd expect he should be. As now we're having a look at George Russell, of course, second, or is he second or is he first? I think he's first in the championship. We're going to go for a move into the chicane up the inside, last minute late braking move. Great little move there on George Russell to put us up another position. And now we've got our eyes set on Fernando Alonso, who's getting held up by Perez here. Just doesn't quite have the straight line speed to make anything move on him. But Perez really isn't showing the speed he should be. As once again we head very quick through 130R. We look at the outside, but then we're going to dart to the inside, just like we did with Russell. A little bit more side by side with Alonso through the chicane. But we've gotten up another position, up into P6 now, and it's actually Verstappen. I didn't even notice it's Verstappen who is the Red Bull behind. Perez is the Red Bull ahead. So Verstappen, obviously, I don't know, with some sort of issue or just doesn't have the pace in this race, because he is the Red Bull that is now right ahead of us, and with only a few laps left to go, only a couple of laps to go, I think we might actually be heading on to the final lap of the Grand Prix here. We're going to see if we can make a move on Verstappen for P5 in this race. We go into turn 1, late on the brakes. Pretty touch and go there, but we get the move done on Max Verstappen, third in the championship, and that puts us up into P5. Let's see if we can hold that position. But at the front, it was a pretty damn dominant performance from this man, the man who has not won a race so far this season. Lewis Hamilton will win his first race since 2021. He wins the Japanese Grand Prix. He makes it the first driver, the first second driver in a team to win a race. So now it's not just Russell, Verstappen and Leclerc. Hamilton now is also in the winners club for season 1 of My Team Career Mode. He wins the race. It's the 2 Ferraris, second and third. I think Sainz ahead of Leclerc. Then it's Perez in 4th. We are just about going to come home after quite a lot of pressure on the final lap from Max Verstappen to finish P5. So that's a very good finish for us. Made a few good positions in those last 5 or 6 laps. I think that's a very good finish for us. Some good points for the team. A pretty enjoyable race. Not a whole lot of action, to be honest, but pretty enjoyable. Really love racing on this track. So yeah, it was a good one.
They've done it then, here at Suzuka. A brilliant win on the beloved Figure of 8 circuit. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take the top spot. A well-earned victory for Mercedes.
So Lewis Hamilton takes the win for the Japanese Grand Prix. He's up there with the 2 Ferraris. It is Carlos Sainz second, Charles Leclerc in third. So maybe for the championship, Sainz should have perhaps let Leclerc pass, but obviously no team orders at Ferrari because they were right on top of each other in that race. But I guess even though, you know, Leclerc's finished third behind his teammate, behind Hamilton, he's still finished ahead of his 2 main rivals in this championship, Verstappen and Russell, who finish, Verstappen P6, Russell P8. So it's not been a good weekend for the championship contenders, with the exception of Leclerc, although, you know, he probably would have been hoping for more than P3. No retirements in this race at all. All 22 drivers finished the race, so that's pretty crazy. And that result means that Charles Leclerc now goes from trailing George Russell by 5 points to now leading George Russell in the championship by 6 points. So Leclerc now back ahead in the Drivers' Championship. Not really much other change. I think Hamilton might have moved up a position or 2. And then, yeah, no real changes behind either. Doohan still the last of the point scorers. And then Mercedes still on top of the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari second and Red Bull third. We are still quite firmly there in 4th place. Our fight really is with Aston Martin for that P4 finish. We're we're not going to be catching the cars ahead. They are way further ahead than us, like double the points almost, I think, or maybe even more than that. But yeah, a P4 finish in our first season would be very good. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.